Welcome, everyone, and hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Conversations with Comic Creators. I am Nigel. I still need to work out the transitions in OBS, but that's a problem for another day. So we are here, we are live, and this is episode 47 of the show. So this is the Maya Matter show, where each month I speak to a different comic creator about their journey and what goes into the craft of making comics. So it's all about showcasing the human being behind the art as we discover each person's story. And I am the Maya Matter co-founder. And today I am talking with Shazleen Khan. Shazleen, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on, Nigel.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming back. Always appreciate when people do come back. You've come back for a second time, so that must be something, must be something positive in that. So, yeah, thanks for having, or thanks for joining me again. For those that didn't catch episode, I think it's like episode 17 you're on. I'm going to fact check that it was a long time ago. Yeah, we'll fact check that in a second. So, for those that don't know, Shazleen is a queer Bangladeshi Muslim illustrator and author based in London, and their work centers around the experiences of diaspora, religious mysticism, and complicated interpersonal relationships. I feel like those are the only kind of interpersonal relationships, the complicated ones. And so they're the creator of the Ignatz award-winning webcomic Boozer, with new editions being published by Abrams in the UK at the end of June, that's this month, as we live stream. And the illustrator of the Eisner and Harvey nominated middle grade graphic novel Saving Sunshine. So today we're going to talk about the journey of releasing a book with a publisher, like how that works, what the benefits, challenges, and all the things in between. But first of all, yeah, Shazleen, how's it going? How's this year been as we approach the middle midpoint of the year? I had a bit of an existential crisis about how fast the year is going. I don't know if yeah, is that a thing you do, existential crises?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for me, I also feel like this is kind of a weird moment because the first half of the year, like, I think it started strong, and I spent like 3 months of it kind of ill. So I feel like I curse myself all the time. Like I periodically, when I work too hard, my body just gives up. um,
Oh, I see.
so I did spend definitely like February and March like pretty out of it. And then it kind of got back onto things in April, and then I've had to take a bit of a like break for personal reasons in May. Um, Except my social media wouldn't really say that because I've been posting like constantly on there.
Hmm.
But my like you said, like my book is coming out in the UK at the end of this month, but it came out in the USA at like I think last week actually. So it
Okay.
came out on the 20 uh it was the 26th of May, which I think was last week. I'm not 100% now. um but
I
yeah,
also
the
think it
I
was
think
last
the
week.
international, yeah,
I'm
I
just
think
gonna
so. It's like
peek at the
Tuesday.
calendar.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Just thereabouts. Yeah, yeah.
But like it's coming out in the UK, and hopefully I think globally at the end of this month on the 25th of June. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. And is this your first published work with a publisher? Or have you done others?
So I have done other stuff. So like you said earlier, like Saving Sunshine was with Pan Macmillan. It's so the actual publisher of Saving Sunshine is First Second, but they're like a subsidiary of Macmillan.
Right.
And I've also done subsequent like different comics with different publishers. So last year I had two books come out, one with Penguin Random House and then one with Abrams. And Abrams is actually the publisher on Boozer, and genuinely that's how I managed to get this deal because I'd worked on this. Oh my gosh,
Oh, we almost lost.
it's okay. Like I'm trying to share the books, and then
That's
the
cool.
camera decides it doesn't want to.
We'll edit that
But
out when we eventually put this somewhere when you clip it.
thank you, Nigel. But so I actually worked on this book called Sinister Sisters. That came out last year, right at the start of the year with Abrams. And when I was working on this book, I made quite good like relationship with the editor who was like in charge of that particular edition.
Mm.
Um, and that kind of did lead me to being published by Abrams for the new edition of Boozer, which is this.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's the sort of benefit of doing the live streams with people that you've already had a chat with. So I know you've got other things because we had a talk about publishing, and
Yeah.
but it's interesting to know like your, I guess the journey and the transition. Because one of the things, and this is just me now, like picking your brain.
Yeah,
So what? One of the things is the transition from self-publish where you started
yeah.
and like having a publisher where you are now. I'm interested to know why. Is that something that an opportunity that came to you? Did you seek that out? Like, what was that moment where you're like, okay, either this opportunity's come to me, or I need to no longer do self-published stuff and find a publisher? What was that like?
So it's a little bit of everything. So like for everyone who's watching and maybe watching this in the future and stuff who is not familiar with my work, I've been self-publishing my work for, I think this year is going to be like 15 years or some stupid thing. So I've always been sort of doing at some scale like some kind of self-publishing. My goal when I was like younger was to work in traditional publishing, so that was always something I wanted to do. I think like whether or not I wanted my own stories to be the things I published, that kind of changed over time and has always been kind of, like a in progress decision. I think it's kind of difficult sometimes when I I'm trying to think about my whole career and also for people who may be watching this and who are younger, maybe like in uni or starting out in their careers in different stages. I think we all have dreams of like working with a publisher, especially if you're coming from like a manga anime background. You're like, I want to be a mangaka. I want to like have my books like in physical things, and that's kind of like the dream everyone maybe has, or I definitely
Mm.
had. But then as I kind of progressed in my career, especially at the start, I started realizing that the sort of stories I wanted to make was the kind of thing I didn't know if a publisher would actually take, or I kind of did have a few experiences early on in my career where I was like, okay, well, I could probably do stuff that publishers want. Like I can work with like a author, because I'm an artist and an author. So I was like, well, I can work as an artist. I can sell my work as an artist and work with an author. And maybe the stuff that I want to write, I'll self-publish that because it doesn't seem like I'm getting a very good like reception. So Boozer as like a comic, I never actually intended to like the original like this version. This is like my own old copy that I've got marked up for like edits and stuff. But this original version and the webcomic and stuff, like I conceptualized the comic as something that I wanted to do for myself that would be easy to do alongside like a part-time job or like other commercial work I was doing and stuff. So it's in some ways like a lot more simple and a lot more like stripped down than some of the other stuff I've done with other publishers and things.
Mm.
Um, but saying that, like, I would say, like, I would personally think that Boozer was quite successful as a self-published work. But the reason I ended up deciding to go publishing with it is because there has been so many changes in like online and also I guess real life media. Um,
Mm.
One of the things that I feel, and I don't know if you felt this, Nigel, as well, like I like one of the things is like myself and Nigel have seen each other at events like over the years and all this kind of stuff. So I've always seen my Armada and you guys doing all these different comics and collaborating, doing different kinds of events and ventures and stuff. Um, Something I've definitely noticed over the last maybe 3 to 4 years, yeah, is that like Kickstarters and crowdfunding have not been as successful for me as they used to. The last thing I kickstarted was the fifth volume of Boozer, which is like this one, and I like crowdfunded this in 2024.
Mm.
And like I did notice like a significant lack of like I wouldn't say it's unsuccessful because it fully funded. I was able to like, print the book and distribute it and all that kind of stuff. I didn't have any like, I wasn't in any like financial crisis because I didn't make enough money. Um, but at the same time, like even though it was successful, even though everything was fulfilled, even though I made a profit from the Kickstarter, it wasn't as successful, or it didn't grow as fast as some of the other projects that I've done for like Boozer as a
Right.
series. And I noticed also at events, like I have like this big series that's got like 5 books, and people are looking at them and they're like, oh, I don't know, like, oh, it feels kind of intimidating.
Oh, as in
Um,
new people, so people who don't know the
yeah,
series and they're
yeah,
staring at five. Oh,
yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah,
So you
exactly.
got too
So like
much,
new,
is what you're saying.
yeah. So, no, but like seriously, because like also at the same
Don't you number
time,
them?
like, pardon?
Don't you number them?
Yeah, I do, I do.
Okay,
But
so just start with
but
one,
this is the
people.
thing, like,
It's-
no, but imagine I'm trying to get into the heads of the people who are
okay,
coming to my table. It's like
so
you're
I don't
coming
get
to
it. So you
Comic
tell
Con.
me. Yeah.
Well, this is my psychoanalysis, right? It's
Okay.
like imagine you're like 23, maybe you
Okay.
graduated uni out of the pandemic, right? You got some job, and you're
Okay.
like, I want to read some gay comics, I want to buy some like different things, and you're going around Comic Con, and you're like, wow, this looks great. There's
Yep.
like
Got it.
5 of it. Well, that's quite a lot. And then you look at the book, and it's like £20, and you're like, that's my food for like most of the week.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
it's like that's the
Mm,
kind of thing that I'm thinking that my readers are getting into. Is like they're like,
fair. Fair. Okay. All
damn,
right.
I
Yeah.
invest like nearly £100 into this
Yeah. Yeah.
series?
Yeah.
Because if you
All right.
imagine like
I'll
each
give you
book,
that.
right?
I'll give you that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
lost. You lost me
And
until you said that last bit.
it's the money. It's the money. That's
It's
what
the
it comes
money.
down to. It's basically like what I was gonna say is like, the paper cost has gone up. So as I'm printing these books, like they're actually getting a little bit more expensive to print for me.
Yeah.
I'm having to bump up the prices because the world is more expensive for
Yeah.
me. And it's like sitting there being like, damn, I used to get these books for £15, now they're like £20. Now like, bread is really expensive and shit. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
things aren't getting cheaper for anyone. Which means it's like, when you come to an event and stuff, or if you're buying stuff online, you're gonna be a bit more stingy. You're gonna be a bit more considerate with your cash.
Sure.
And so yeah, and I think that actually genuinely made a difference. It made enough of a difference that like when I was funding for this book, I was kind of sitting there being like, damn, I really need to kind of lock in. Realistically, I think I didn't sign an NDA, so I think I can
Okay.
say this stuff now that the book's coming out. But we were actually in talks to publish Boozer for over a year. We
Mm.
started pitching it like I think it was actually 2024. So the book got announced in 2025, like August.
Right.
But by in like June, July 2024, I was actually shopping it around, talking to different people, working on it with my agent. Because at that point, that was when I was already thinking, like, I think I need a publisher. I think I need someone to help me. I can see the changes in the market in like going to Comic Con, going to different events and stuff. It was getting more and more expensive for me to do these things, more and more
Mm.
like untenable for me to like manage it. So we were actually already shopping around. I also did actually get some interest. This was also partially why we started shopping, is because smaller publishers, like independent publishers, had contacted me and my agent and been like, "Hey, you want us to print Boozer for you?" And I was like, I don't know. And
Right.
when I was talking to my agent, because a big part of this is I have an agent. She's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I love her. She's
Did you
in the
have an agent and
States.
publisher at the same time, or did you have an agent
Yeah.
and
So
then?
your agent, I can talk more about that in a second as
Okay.
well. Like or I can talk about it now actually,
You
since you
know.
asked.
Yes.
Maybe now. An agent and a publisher work very differently to each other. Your agent
Mm.
is kind of your middleman. And they're on your team. So your agent should be your like number one business guy. That's at least how I think of my agent. I'm like, she is my business partner. She carries me through all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um, the point of she's a literary agent, so she specifically goes for graphic novels, books. Like she does prose books as well.
Mm.
But the point of like having an agent is that she's someone who's going to litigate for you to the publisher, and she or like they will essentially be kind of the bad guy while you get to be like the talent, right?
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
she sorts out like, yeah, so she'll contact the editor, she'll contact like the publishing house, she'll do all the chasing my royalties and making sure I'm getting my pay and all that kind of stuff. She does all the heavy lifting in that aspect,
Mm.
so I can just be like nice and friendly and do my work, and she
Yeah. Yeah.
facilitates
I
me.
get it. Yeah.
She has been like a huge part of my career, and I do nothing but sing praises to her. But like, yeah, my agent actually did get queries about Boozer from smaller publishers, and so when I talked to her about it, we decided actually, yeah, why don't we just pitch it to the major, like bigger publishers, and then we'll see what happens. So we were working on pitching it all through like 2024, basically, and then basically one day before the US election, we actually got confirmed that we would work with Abrams, and I got the funniest email where she was like, yeah, so things look great. But obviously election is tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah, of course.
yeah.
Different
And like
environment.
it's yeah, and this is what I'm saying, right? It's like the world is different. Like
Mm.
when I started making this comic, like it was Trump season 1 and
Jeez.
like oh, and like American and UK, and I this is I work more in a US industry, right? So like they're bigger publishing industries I work
Right.
in. And they pay better. But like
Yeah, I've
um
heard. Yeah.
yeah. They like they were really making a push towards like diversity at that point. Like I think it was like end of Obama era, and then pushing towards like fighting against Trump. There was a lot
Mm.
more of a left push for representation, for queer books, for books with like racially marginalized characters, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm.
All that stuff that pertains to me.
Mm.
Um, and I also think that, you know, like we weren't in too much of an economic crisis at like Trump era 1 because it was pre-pandemic. With this point that we're in
Season two.
now,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it's bigger and worse than ever.
Big.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I
The
think
special
like
effects
we're
are good
seeing.
though. That's
Oh my god. Off camera we can chat about
yeah, yeah.
but like yeah, like with this point I think you know, there's much more of a right-wing push
Mm.
in media. There's more of a right-wing push
Yeah,
in
yeah.
all sorts of things, and even though publishing I think is a space that's very, I think it's a very like woman-led specifically place, but I also think, you know, like I deal with lots of other queer people in publishing. It's a very queer and woman-led space in like American market. I think because of that, it's still trying to protect us. It's still trying to get those books in, but there's less funding. Like there's a lot less, you know, wider support for the kind of
Mm.
material that I'm making. Um, and so it's kind of like tricky because we move into like it was probably the right time. And this is kind of going back to your question, is like, was it like something I always wanted to do, or was it something that I had to do? And like really it is kind of both. It's like I never thought I would be good enough, or like that publishers would want my work, because I was already kind of aware it's a difficult sell, but I needed them to want it. And I'm very lucky that
Right.
because of the work I've done leading up to this, I built good enough relationships with editors and publishers that I actually got this opportunity. Um,
Right.
yeah, because like it was straight up like my editor who initially signed this project, she actually doesn't work at the company anymore, but so it was like the editor for this book, which is, I bring it up again to show on screen. Um, this is like an anthology, and I was the one who's brought in. I was kind of, I think I was essentially brought in as a pinch hitter, if that makes sense. The
A
book was
pinch
kind
hitter.
of mostly, yeah, it's like a
Okay, you're
term
gonna have
my
to give me a
friend,
definition of.
yeah, my friend Andy uses this with like zines and stuff, but it's basically someone who's brought in like when the project's at a pinch and they're like here to just
Oh.
knock out the deadline.
Oh, okay.
So
Is
like
that
a
a
pinch
baseball
hitter,
thing
yeah.
or cricket? Okay,
I think
okay,
it's a baseball term, yeah. But
okay.
basically, like, I got known as a pinch hitter for like other jobs as well, because I work kind of fast. So I feel like I got brought in on this book kind of late, or like relatively late, because they had the script. They had, I think, one or two of the artists already like signed onto it, and they needed another artist to basically do, because it's an anthology, which
Hmm.
with 3 artists including myself. Um, they needed one artist to do kind of like a framing narrative and then the final short story within the anthology. Um, and so I got brought in to be that like final artist to do like this kind of framing
Okay.
narrative. And the editor on this book, She's so amazing. Like I really, really liked working with her, and she reached out to me because I got nominated for the Eisners in 2024. So
Mm.
myself and my partner had flown over to San Diego. I was like,
Wow.
I'm with the big boys. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so like I went over, and while I was there, my editor for this book had like reached out and been like, "It'd be really nice to see you. Let's grab a coffee." I met her and I gave her like a copy of like one of the most recent copies of Boozer. I was like, you know, like we're looking to pitch this. I love working with you. If you think there's a space for this, you know, like please take it on. And I think that genuinely that in-person meeting led to
Made a difference.
you know, like she's the one who made the offer on the book. Unfortunately, she did end up like moving on to a different job because she's so amazing. She got another job opportunity, but like, yeah, the book was acquired by Abrams and then yeah, turned into a whole new version. Thanks to
Okay.
her, and yeah, thanks to just basically making all these like small connections and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, small.
Sorry.
but but yeah, like I think it was truly like I needed to get that deal because it was getting a lot harder to do it by myself for sure.
So that's the key. And you said early on that you didn't think your work would be suitable or yeah for publishing. And I feel because self-publishing is I feel what most I don't know the numbers, but what most let's say comic like independent comic people will do because that's the it's the easiest thing. Right, you make it, you sell it yourself,
Yeah,
and that's it. And then
yeah, yeah,
Kickstarter comes along, and other platforms make it help like going to
yeah,
conventions in person helps you
yeah,
self-publish so you can sell your stuff. And I don't know, and I'm probably projecting a bit here, but because we are self-published and
yeah,
publishers is generally up until like 2 years ago is not something that I've like actively thought about, and even then I haven't really actively done much about it. So I imagine that's the same for a lot of people. You wouldn't have thought your my work can go to that level, whatever that level is. So for
yeah.
you, what was the mindset shift that meant that you were like, okay, no, actually, we can take this to a publisher, and I expect, if not, obviously not everyone's going to say yes, but I expect to get one yes somewhere. What was that
Yeah.
mindset shift?
I think I think like you know, for me myself, I actually always want to work in publishing. Generally, like from I guess like from graduation from uni, which is
Mm,
nearly 10 years ago now. Um, yeah, so like I had always set out to work in publishing and then I wanted my cake and I wanted to have my cake and to eat it too, right? Like
right.
I wanted to self-publish the stuff that I was working on, and then I wanted to work with publishers for money. Um,
Mm,
and so like when which sounds stupid too, because no one in the world has ever said like, oh yeah, working as an artist and author is good standard money. But like you can make money, like you can live on this, right?
yeah.
Like you can live on this. Um, and yeah, so like I think when I had graduated, like I my goal was to work with publishers, to work in traditional publishing, and so there wasn't really like a mindset shift in regards to me as a practitioner working
Mm,
there, but there was a mindset shift into having Boozer as a comic in that space. And again, like that just comes down to the financials. It
right.
came down to like the financials, it becoming less and less tenable for me to manage it by myself because I'm, you know, like you yourself run this business. I'm sure you understand, like, you know, how
Yeah.
many things go into
Yeah.
doing it. And like, I don't, I don't do a multimedia thing like you do, but like, you know, running, like doing the art, the writing, the like online upload schedule, the like
Mm,
promotion, the like physical events, the distribution when I did like like I did all of it myself, right? Like
mm,
I did the book design, I did everything. Um, I didn't have any help. And like I was doing that. I was putting out like a graphic novel, like a hundred and like the smallest volume of Booza is literally, I think number 5, and that one is still like, yeah, it's they're all 150 plus pages,
wow. Okay.
and I was doing that like nearly every year, and then I was also putting out other graphic novels. So like since 2019, I've had a book out every year, at least one.
Mm.
And it's like right, and And it's like doing that is a lot. And like most of those books, like I was distributing them myself. Like the most successful Kickstarter boost I ever had was number 3, and that one had like I think 400 backers backed like a physical copy. So I
Mm.
don't remember because like with the Kickstarters I'd also print the older versions as well, and then
Mm.
like ship them all out. But there was at least 400 packages that I did by myself with like my friends and my family. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
packing them up and yeah. And so it's like, and like that's a lot of work. And I'm not young like I was back then. Like I feel like I'm maybe prematurely aged from
From all this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it was that it was trying to like is making a decision about like, okay, I want to finish this comic. It is actually fairly successful, and I think like, going from, okay, people aren't gonna really like this, I'm not really confident with like publishers liking it, to then being like, well, it's proven itself as good, right?
Mm.
Like the year we got that publishing deal was also when I won an award, like I won the Ignats for it, right? And so it's like I was nominated for like another book. So it's like I had like material success.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, okay, well, even if you don't like the book, you can't say that people aren't interested
I'm
in my
interested. Yeah,
work, right?
someone likes it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like people like this book. People like me, apparently. You, like, again, the publisher who worked with me was
Mm.
like, we like you because we hired you
Yeah.
already. So, like, come on. Why wouldn't you want to? It's already
Okay.
done. You can just have this book. And, like, again, it's over like 900. It's over 9,000. It's like
Time
over
it's over
900
nine.
pages worth. It's over 9,000. No, it's not. It's over 900 pages of like comic, right?
Yeah.
That was ready for them to print. And I think like, again, not to be so cynical about this, but like they it wasn't that they didn't have to invest that much.
Mm.
Like aside from literal money, like they didn't have
Mm.
to invest that much time. They could literally get it and it filled up the slots or whatever,
Okay.
right? I don't know. This
Do you
is all
think?
conjecture.
Yeah. But do you think
But
that
yeah.
helped that you had it as a webcomic? Because one of the things that when I look back at so like our comics, because our comics have always been like print and we've not done
Yeah.
webcomics, and that's just I guess mostly because sort of focus for me, but also because I'm a writer but not the illustrator. So then I've always seen the comics as like a specific project in terms of
Yeah.
like scheduling and budgeting and everything.
Yeah.
So we're doing a
Yeah.
thing, we're going to print it, and that's it. Versus this ongoing thing. So now I'm
Yeah.
thinking to not reverse it, but add the online bit and work that out. But do you think like having that webcomic run so that you're building up an audience and people can see the work
Yeah.
before and then it's ready for printing? Do you think that makes a difference, or do you feel like if you didn't have a webcomic, you could have still got a publisher?
Well, so yeah, I think it's the first option. I when I was pitching this comic, when me and my agent were working on packaging this and stuff and sending it, it was a real conversation between us because and I think there's a lot of conversation about this generally because publishers are really worried. Like they're really worried that webcomics are like cannibalizing their own like market, or like the concern for Boozer as well was that like, oh well, yeah, it's successful, but maybe that's all the people who want it, right? Like these were the
Right,
kind of conversations
you've
I was
maxed
having
out.
with my
Yeah.
yeah, these are the kind of concerns that she was like bringing, because part of the job of an agent too is to give you like a reality check and to meter your expectations and be like, let's think of it from this perspective, right?
Mm.
And so these are the kind of perspectives we were discussing and thinking about. And yeah, it is a difficult conversation to have because in my mind, I really think that if you went, I would be like, oh wow, this comic's all done. All these people like it. Great. I would love to invest
Done.
money in
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would think that's a really good
Don't
deal. That's
overthink
why
it. Just give me the money.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is like my perspective, my conjecture.
Sure.
But I'm sure in the board meeting, in whatever board meeting my publisher had about this, like I'm sure loads of different perspectives came in. I'm sure there was lots of different considerations and lots of different discussion as to whether this would be a good idea. And I think that like what my agent had said to me of like, maybe you did cannibalize all your sales from self-publishing. Maybe like that's going to be kind of difficult, because these were the kind of things that she's like, maybe publishers wouldn't want it because of that. I think these are real concerns. These are real concerns that publishing may have for self-published work, that there isn't a wider audience for it. And yeah, I do, but like personally, I think like webcomics are great. Personally, I think that there actually is a lot of space for that stuff to come out and to be successful. I think we see a lot of stuff like there's a lot of webtoons that have been really successful, and then like from the UK we've had like, obviously big Heartstopper. Heartstopper has been like so successful, and that was like self-published initially, before it got like the main publishing deal from Hachette. Hamish Steele, who I mentioned earlier, like, or I mentioned to you, but yeah, my dear friend Hamish also did Dead Endia, which became like Dead End Paranormal Park on Netflix. And like he's, gone from self-publishing to working with different publishers to make that comic come out as well. And that's like, I think these are both like successes, like real successes from the UK. If we look to the States and then also Webtoon, there's like Lore Olympus, and then a lot of Webtoon and webcomics from Korea specifically that get translated. Those do fairly well as well, in like printed media. Um, and we also see the opposite, where like DC Comics, I think, has a partnership with Webtoon, and they're putting a bunch of their IPs on Webtoon now. Like this is a few years ago, but they started like publishing webcomics on Webtoon, and then they were also printed books. So I think they've got like Archie and then like the Bat Family, like a few different comics from those like franchises.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I think they're either, and I think I even saw like Avatar Last Airbender had like some of the spin-off comics were like,
because they've got a whole range. Yeah, I've got a few of those.
yeah, they've got like, yeah, so you can see that there's more and more of an overlap between comics publishers and online like comics and web comics. And I think it does serve as a marketing tool. Like that's actually the main reason I made a webcomic, was because like I said, I've been working in self-publishing for like, this year it's 15 years. I am like 31 this year. So I started making this stuff when I was a teenager. And I think one of the biggest, you were talking about like existential crises, one of my biggest existential crises as like a 20 something was like nearly finishing my uni degree and being like, I've been like publishing comics since I was like a child, but no one knows who I am. And like,
right.
I think the comics I'm making are good, but I've also not done a good job, right? Like why?
Something.
Yeah, like I'm missing something. And even though I was like making the comics, I definitely feel like the comics I made as a teen, and I made a lot of friends, or like I made like colleagues and friends and peers and stuff, but I clearly didn't do a good enough job of like pushing my comics to just readers, or like sharing it in a way that people were finding it interesting and stuff. And I think that was like a real existential crisis for me, because I was like, well, I need to really rethink like how I'm engaging with this, because like what's the point of making something if someone's not going to read it, right? Like I'm not just making it for myself. I do want to have readers, I do want to be in this industry, I do want to work in publishing, all that kind of stuff. And so like that was a big motivator for me to actually make Booza in the first place, because I wanted to have some kind of, again, like I was thinking a lot about making it easy for myself, like something that I could do to publish alongside having a part-time job, alongside studying, all this kind of, or like I'd finished studying at that point, but something that I could do while I was working on other stuff to give myself some kind of like online presence and have people be interested in my work. And I genuinely think a lot of my success is because of the growth of like interest in my work because of Booza. So a lot of my close friends who are like, collaborators, fellow comic artists and writers, I met them because I was making this book and I was making this webcomic. I grew a Twitter following more back when Twitter was good and Elon didn't run it. Yeah, and like that led me to meeting my agent, because she saw my posts and stuff being shared around, and she actually contacted me from Twitter. So like me being more present online, me sharing like my work, and having this webcomic, it did lead me to having a more successful publishing career too. So I
Mm.
feel like these two things, like, they're really
So
enmeshed
yeah,
with
it
each
goes
other.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned booze, and just for people who might not be familiar, do you want to tell us what the story is, and in
Yeah,
your work in general, what kind of stories you tell?
yeah, sure. So I feel like so funny that we got to this point in the thing, and now it's like we should
So
tell
what do you
people what
do?
you're making.
Yeah. What do you do?
Yeah. But okay, so this is Booza, and I guess I also have the original version. This is original Booza. They're nearly the same, but they're not quite. One is significantly smaller than the other.
Wow.
But Booza is a. I have like I feel like really put on the spot now. I'm like, I usually have like a good elevator pitch, but it's like gone.
Yeah. What's your
So
pitch?
so Booza is a low fantasy, high drama, queer webcomic. And it's set in like a alternative like fantasy West Asia and also like Central Asia. The
Mm,
main character of the comic, which is the two main characters we can hold on. The main character of the comic is this guy, he's called Zach, and he is kind of this down on his luck. This is a family friendly podcast.
yes.
So
Yeah.
his job will not be elaborated on here, but you can read the blurb of the comic. But he works on a phone line, and he gets a
Cool. Got it.
mysterious call on New Year's Eve from someone who called a very incorrect number. And
Right.
the other person on the phone is someone on like who's having kind of like a crisis, and Zach sort of helps him through it. And this kind of sparks a little bit of a connection, maybe soon to be a romance.
Mm,
But he also on like New Year's Day, um, he kind of runs into this girl who's our second main character, and her name's Sam, and he'd actually scammed her the night before, and then finds out that she is his roommate. They signed the same lease on the same place, because his previous house had kind of gone messed up, so he had to sign something very like urgently, and they end up being roommates, and they have a wonderful friendship, and she may or may not be part of some kind of large government cover up, linked
mm,
to various other things. um, so yeah, it's a comic that has a lot of different characters. There's also, of course, the man on the other side of the phone who's called Jen, and um, another character called Musa, who is actually Jen's estranged relative. Musa starts out the story being like, "Oh my god, I have a secret brother," and then going on a quest to find his brother, who turns out to be the same man that Zach's talking to, and they also connect somehow. So it's a lot of different characters. All
right.
of them are kind of young in their 20s, sort of finding their place in the world. Um, and it leads to, romance,
Mm.
fantasy, introspection, maybe a political coup. Who's to say?
Who
But
knows? Who knows when a political coup will come?
who knows?
In you say low fantasy. What does that mean? Is
So
high fantasy like Lord of the Rings?
yeah. So that's exactly how I kind of think of it. It's like, um, Buza is a comic that uses like fantasy as like, a metaphor for like various things, including like one's own connection to their like culture and spirituality and stuff like that. I'm a Muslim, so one of the things with this comic is like a lot of the, I guess, like cultural touches and stuff is shaped by my experience as like a South Asian Muslim. Um, I talk a lot about kind of, I guess, like different like little cultural aspects and
Mm.
things. Um, but the fantasy aspect is also kind of linked to that. So some of the characters can turn into animals, and it's sort of based on the idea and these kind of like stories about jinns my mum and family would tell me as a kid.
Right.
Um, and the concept that like jinns are beings that live on the same, like they live on a different plane of existence, but they're like around us.
Mm.
So this kind of world is on the idea that like, but what if they were like just actually on the same plane of existence and we could kind of see them, and like what does that mean to live in a world where some of the people are not really quite human?
Right.
um it's very normal. Like
Yeah,
the
well,
way the
yeah,
characters treat is very normal,
yeah.
but it sort of leads to other stuff later down the line.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And are you into fantasy stories, or
I
is that why you made
yeah.
this, or was this just the story that came to mind?
So I do like fantasy. I love Lord of the Rings as a kid, and I think
Mm,
when I was like when I first wanted to like write stories, I think I was much more interested in like fantasy and sci-fi. Bullseye sci-fi. It started as a cyberpunk comic, which is really goofy to think about now. Because I this is a comic that I was like, dreaming of when I was a teenager. And these characters are ones that I'd like been drawing as a teenager, and I wanted to write this like big epic like shonen style like sci-fi kind of fantasy story.
okay. We're
Um,
gonna do that One
with
Piece.
like
Keep it going for
weapons and stuff. Yeah,
a thousand
yeah,
chapters.
yeah. That was the dream. That was like
Yeah,
literally my
yeah.
dream as a like kid, right? And when I grew up and I was like, no, 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 comics are hard. Who's
Yeah.
paying you to do this? I was like, let's downscale that dream. Let's just do like the still ludicrous amount of pages I've made for this comic.
Mm,
But I also then wanted to, yeah, I think I love like fantasy sci-fi. I do like genre fiction generally, but like
mm,
I think I wanted to make something that was a lot more like low key, a lot more like slice of life and gentle. And
okay.
I did that also because I wanted it to be quite accessible to people who are reading it. And I
Mm,
think it's also just the kind of thing I was into at the time when I started this comic. Like I wanted to draw like, like basic tech, like it's set in the 90s. So I wanted to imagine like what it would be like to try and have a long distance like friendship or romance when
oh,
you
okay.
don't have like
Over an
video
actual
like
phone. those
yeah,
those were the
or
days.
like or even when you were like poor enough that you didn't have a good phone, because like
Yeah.
part of this comic is that like not everyone has a mobile phone. Like Zach has one for his job, but the characters don't really have one, and he's also quite like he's very working class. He doesn't really have access to a house phone either, so like that becomes like a narrative plot point as the
Mm.
story progresses. Like how do you talk to someone when you don't know their address and you've been calling from like a public number? Like
Oh
how do you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like how do you find someone in this world that you can't easily move through, like,
Yeah, I feel
these
like
are all the kind of, yeah.
no, so I feel like the nineties, one maybe the best decade. I don't know, and just put that out there. And then two is interesting time, like for stories because, like you say, there are. I feel. I guess this doesn't apply to all stories because that's not to say there aren't good stories across mediums now, but there are certain things that just make things more interesting narratively when, like you say, you can't just. Even me doing this is very nice, so that's yeah. But even just an actual phone,
Yeah,
when you can't just instantly connect with people that can throw in some interesting narrative situations or just yeah, I feel like it was a good time to set a story. Things are too easy
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Is it like I said it there because it would create conflict. I say it there
Yeah,
because it would, yeah,
that's the
because
word.
it would make it like more challenging, right? um yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. No, that sounds really interesting, and just like hearing you talk about how you approach the fantasy. So for because we're or one of the stories I'm working on is it's not necessarily a fantasy, but it's there's a lot of world building in it.
Mhm.
And for our stories to date, they've been relatively simple when it comes to world building. But it's something I've been thinking more about in
Yeah,
last year or so. How much do you how much do you pay to world building, and where's the point where you stop world building and you start writing the story? Because that's one of the things that I'm finding where you can
mhm.
go. So the story that we've got is 11th Hour, and it's
Yeah,
one of the stories that we came up with initially, like when we first started My Matter, but just never got to
yeah,
basically. But it's
okay,
always
yeah,
been there. And as I'm working on it now, there's a lot of like there's a political system going on. There's like social, economic stuff going on. There's like some magic slash technology fusion thing happening, and then
yeah,
you sort of dig into it. And it's like, oh, what about this? And how does this work? And how does that work with that? And what does this mean? And what do the people think about that? And then I'm finding like, oh, we can just spend a lot of time just digging and digging and digging. At what
yeah,
point do you stop and write the story?
yeah. I think it's I think that is like one of those things you have to have as an ongoing conversation, and I it's also different if you're working on a standalone project compared to like an ongoing project. So
Mm.
because Buddha is like an ongoing project, I feel like with my project, I always have to strike a balance between, is it efficient to do this now? Like, is this efficient like time spent for me? And that could be like, am I spending enough time like drawing the thing? But also like, is there a point for me to introduce this narrative feature or this thing or this thing?
Mm.
So I always find like with when I work on a book or when I work on a story or whatever thing, I end up stewing about it for years. So like I'll literally have like concepts of comics, and these can even be like really short comics. I'll just have in my brain, and they'll just be like rumbling around. And
Mm.
I think because you end up sort of just back burner thinking about something, and it sounds like
Yeah.
your project actually is like this, where it's been
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
it's been
Yeah,
cooking
it's
for like
definitely
a
been
while,
there.
right? It's
Yeah.
cooking, it's cooking. And so like that's good. I think that's genuinely good because it means that it's really important for you as a writer to be situated in that world or to really know stuff about it, right?
Mm.
But it isn't always useful for your audience to know everything you know. And
Yeah,
that's
sure.
like the distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like with Booza, there's actually like a chapter I ended up deciding I'm gonna cut this chapter because it doesn't add anything to the narrative.
Mm.
This can be like a fun trivia for the thing, I'll just say. There was gonna be like this during the comic, one of the things with the setting is it's set in like West Asia.
Mm.
Specifically, the two main characters live in what would be like modern day Kuwait. And I say it there for sentimental reasons. I used to live in Kuwait as a kid
Okay.
at one point. So like I say it there for my own self, but like the if you look at the environment, it doesn't look like what Kuwait looks like. It looks like Bangladesh. It looks like Bangladesh because again, it's my own sentiment. I kind of designed it in a way to fit this sort of idea I had for what the world was like in this
Mm.
fantasy, where like I wanted it to be in this sort of like the world of Buza is this country called Dawlat al Harir, which it means literally country of silk. It's thematically linked to the historic Silk Road, which was a massive trade route
Oh,
that spanned
okay.
all of Asia,
Yeah,
and I think parts of North Africa too. So it went from literally like China to Turkey, and there was multiple routes that you could take on the Silk Road, but it was this huge like a massive historic thing. Um, Buzo is kind of built on that concept of the Silk Road. So that's kind of the span of this fictional like country. It's also run by a divine oracle named Deng Arya bin Dariush, who is a like a jinn, essentially like a
Mm.
creature who is a spider. Um, because spiders make silk webs,
Mm.
and like clothing and textiles is like a massive part of the culture in this world, and that's not ever really said. It's just part of the text. It's just
Mm.
like a lot of the characters do like textile design. A lot of the characters talk about clothes, getting dressed for like Eid, like like the Muslim
Yeah.
festivity. Like that's a really important part of multiple parts of the story. There's got to be more things that relate to clothes, and the way people feel when they wear certain clothes and stuff. Like this is all part of the text of the thing, but it's not really important for my readers to know about like why I chose it, or like it's not really important for my readers to know
Mm.
about like how did that exist in the world, or like why like we don't need to go back and do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because it
But you've
doesn't.
got it somewhere. Like you've got it
Yeah,
written
I've got
down
it.
somewhere. But
Yeah, I've
yeah,
got
yeah.
it.
Is it in your
Right?
head? Is it on a in a document somewhere? How do you?
It's it's somewhere.
It's,
I think like
in the
parts of
ether.
it, like parts of like the more, I guess, like the note making that's like useful for the actual story is like written
Mm.
down, but other parts of it is like who cares?
It's just there.
Like it's in there. Yeah. I
Ah,
think
that's
like
interesting.
yeah, but like one of the things I ended up cutting is because this world is like it's meant to be a world that's also gone through some kind of like cataclysm.
Mm.
The world is a bit more lush and green and vibrant than the real world we live in, and it's it's kind of unclear in the narrative why that is the case. It's just something that kind of happens in the background. And one of the things I was gonna do was have like kind of an instance where the characters deal with one of these kind of oh, my cat's here now too.
Okay.
But like, you know, you know what? She can be the representation. One of the things that was gonna happen is that like a terrible creature like her was gonna come and in like cut into the plot and be something that the characters like fight against, and like it's sort of bringing the outside world.
Mm,
And I ended up just cutting that entire bit because I was like, it doesn't need to happen. Like
mm,
nothing in the story, like it doesn't move the story forward or any of the themes of the story forward.
mm,
It's enough for it to be kind of flavor in the kind of fabric of the universe
mm.
without it having to actually come in. So I ended up like changing it a little bit and like just making these kind of allusions to the more fantastical elements be just kind of more background or like
Right.
extra things, right? Yeah, yeah.
I
So
get
I
that.
think it's a lot about like the efficiency for me.
Yeah, the efficient. Yeah, because I'm thinking because we got a lot of notes. We use Notion, and we've got I don't know like well actually Google Docs. They're quite spread around actually,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah,
a lot of it is still in my head. But I'm trying to because we're working with other people and trying to get stuff down, and then so other people can look at it and like give feedback and things like that. But yeah, I think this year I'll start to get down to like what's the well I kind of know what the actual story is, but it's
yeah.
just been solidified by all the world building that we've done since. I'm also interested to know because we're actually almost out of time, but
No, yeah,
yeah, I know it always goes quick like the hour. But because so over the over the weekend, to give some context, I went to a games tabletop games, went to
yeah,
UK Games Expo, so I spent
yeah,
the weekend there, and I was struck by how do I say this? It's not the most diverse place that that I've been to. That was interesting to see. I mean, it's all very like welcoming and everything, but yeah, I didn't see a lot of people that look like
yeah,
me. And I'm struck by even though you say low fantasy, still fantasy,
yeah,
and fantasy historically has been a place where again it's
yeah,
not only is it not very diverse, but it can be quite hostile to changes. I've seen we spoke about Lord of the Rings and some
yeah.
controversies there. Have you found any of that of like you coming into this space and because from what you've described, it's quite you're bringing in like your cultural perspective into that into the place into the characters into
Yeah.
all those aspects. Like, how have you found that response to what you're doing in this well-established genre?
So I know we're really at the end of it. Good question, and it's also like such an important question for us to like talk about as well. Um, and I think it's also a really complex question, both
Yeah,
in
yeah.
like how I feel about it, and also how I've materially existed while people have been like engaging with my work. Uh, I think to be like kind of a bit shorter on it,
Mm.
or trying to be,
Yeah.
um, I think one of the things with a lot of publishing and with a lot of like spaces in the world generally, but we're talking in publishing and also in like narrative and sort of hobby spaces. Everything is so gendered as well, right? Like, and one of the things I personally feel is the more like hardcore Western fantasy, that Lord of the Rings, high fantasy, that kind of stuff. Sometimes it is very male gendered, like it's a
Yeah.
very masculine space,
Yeah.
and also and similarly like right now I don't know if you know about this, Nigel. I don't know if you've heard of romantasy, the thing that is taking publishing by storm.
No, I've not. I've not.
That's You're proving my point because it's a
Okay.
very like it's so romantasy is a new buzzword that's hopping around all social medias and all this kind of stuff, and it's a lot of it's kind of like a blanket term, like a genre term to talk about like the sort of books that are coming out right now and also have been coming out for like at least a decade now
Mm.
that are sort of very like fantasy but also romance focused, and like
Mm.
sometimes they're a bit more like adult leaning.
Okay.
But there's loads and loads of series like that that are blowing up on social media, like selling out stores, all that kind of stuff, like really, really popular. And it's a very women-centered space, but like specifically like a straight female space.
Right.
Um, and this is what I mean. Like it is a gender like gender really affects like the way we see some of these things,
Oh, for
right? Or
sure.
like
And where they're pushed as well, where
yeah,
publishers feel this is the audience
yeah,
for this work. Yeah.
yeah. And also just how you naturally may occur it, like you may not have had any friends who like read romantasy like for
Mm.
yourself, but my two best friends are both straight women, and they separately got really into these book series and then were like, Shazleen, you need to read them. And I was like, okay. And my agent also is like, Shazleen, these are really popular and I'm also reading them. I was like, okay.
Get on it.
So, like when you kind of are in different, like even socially, just casually in the outside world, like we are affected by that too, right?
Mm.
And I think with the kind of work I'm doing, because my stuff is queer, I don't get the real pushback because queer
Oh,
and more feminine spaces, but I think specifically queer spaces are very
yeah.
open to seeing a bit more diversity because, queer
Got you.
people are
Got you.
marginalized. So, like, queer, like,
Mm.
white people are going to be more open to maybe
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
some of the stuff. Women also tend to be a little bit more interested or like open-minded in terms of like I haven't seen as much. There is absolutely kind of like
Mm.
there's both like I've seen recently kind of controversies of like for example like straight female like romance readers being really like queer phobic in certain things or and again like or racism and stuff in that
Yeah.
community too. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but I do
But you,
think that because of where I'm situated with my
yeah.
books, being like queer kind of contemporary or relatively contemporary fantasy, it ends up attracting an audience who isn't gonna push back. And so like a lot of the again, like I get loads of male readers who are totally fine and totally normal because to accept the queer part, you also have to be pretty open-mindedly accepting like the like cultural aspects or like
Mm.
the things like like the people who are going to come to my books are going to be like quite open to all this kind of stuff. That being said, I've heard some whack shit over the table. I've had some very goofy stories of people who have just been very like I've never had anyone be really rude, but I also think I bring a certain energy to people who I can tell are going to be weird to me. So I've just had like really bizarre kind of comments that I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really need to live my life having heard that ever.
Fair.
But okay, but
Fair
yeah,
enough.
so yeah.
Ah, that's okay. That's interesting to see. Yeah, where your book has like landed, and it's just hearing you talk about that journey is definitely like sort of motivating for me, and there's
Yeah.
inspiration to it as well because to see what you've been able to create with that, and just wondering like where to learn from that.
Yeah.
In terms of like this conversation, so to round out, because what I like to do is end with a quick fire or quick-ish fire. It gets quite introspective, but quickish fire round. And what I've done is have these last few questions to be around this concept of storytelling mapping onto real life. So I
Okay.
had these questions,
I
but
love
because
it.
you've been on a second time, I had to do another round of questions for guests who have been on before. So
Mhm.
I can't repeat those questions. So I'm gonna have to end with our second phase of quickish fire,
Okay.
life as a story question.
Yeah.
So you ready for these ones?
Yes.
Um, cool. So first one is, how would you describe the world that you're in, and what surprises you about it?
Like my real life,
Yeah, yeah.
or
If it were a story,
uh, I feel you know what we did this before, and I must have struggled last time too because I'm like,
it does get people. Yeah,
okay. I like should I describe my world as a genre or just
yeah,
generally or something? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I think I'm living the genre of my comic. I'm like, except I'm doing better than my characters, which is good. I'm
Cool.
like, I've like, maybe I'm at the end of the Boozer comic where it's like, I have my lovely, beautiful partner. I live in my enriched environment with my two cats. What else could I have?
Fair enough.
Hopefully the story ends here so I don't have like a terrible twist incoming.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, the second question is what
Oh
has been
no.
the biggest plot twist of your creative career, and how's it changed your direction?
I feel like I'm gonna just be like saying really personal stuff now. The actual biggest plot twist
Mm.
happened like 5 years ago, which was I said this earlier in this podcast that the best Kickstarter I ever had was Boozo Volume 3. And I had like, 400 like physical backers, but in total I think we had like 500 backers. It
Mm.
funded over 22,000
Mm.
GBP. It's great. That same, like the same time, like I think a week after that Kickstarter stopped running, I had like a massive relationship breakdown. I had to move my fucking sorry. I had to move out of my move out of my flat, move back in with my mom. It was like a nightmare.
Mm.
And I also lost like a book deal. Like I also
Wow.
lost a book
That's
deal at
a
the same time. I also ended my like I stepped away from my long time part time job at that point. So I
mm.
was like, wow, my life is we were really up here. And then
Yeah,
suddenly it was
yeah.
like, yeah.
Wow.
So that was a real like Naruto Shippuden moment. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I've lost everything. I gotta start again. Gonna build back up.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I think
okay.
like now I'm at a good point.
Good place.
But that
Yeah,
was
that's good to
yeah.
hear. Yeah, the good doesn't always come by itself, or the bad either. So I feel you kind of answered the next question is how has conflict like shaped you as an artist? Because that feels like a big point of conflict. Like how did that shape you?
Yeah. I think like one of the things it's taught me to laugh. It's taught me to laugh. I think one of the funniest things was like I said, I lost this like book deal at the same time, right?
Mm,
And I kind of was like, oh, okay, I mean, you win some, you lose some. But the funniest thing was afterwards was meeting my agent in person. I think it was like the first time we met in person because
mm,
we, like it was after the pandemic. She finally came back to she came from the US to UK, and we are having dinner with one of our other clients, and she retold the story too, and she was like, it was so crazy, like she proper telling, and I was like, oh, so it was crazy for you
for
as
you,
well,
yeah.
huh? It was like we both went through this trauma together. Okay, cool. Good to know. And I think that's kind of like conflict becomes a story you share with your friends afterwards. It's like a
Mm,
funny thing you bring up at dinner, and that's kind of like I think that's nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Goes
That's a
through
good
struggles, but
yeah.
it
That's a
becomes
good
funny.
perspective. That's
Yeah.
good perspective. All right, I'm gonna have to keep that in mind. And final question is: if you could rewrite any part of your journey so far, what would you change and why?
Uh, I can I guess not like my journey. I
Mm.
think of like the biggest thing I would change is actually my damn comic.
Oh,
Like
wow. Okay.
was
Okay.
right. My biggest regret is that like I didn't just make one of the characters South Asian, because both of them, like one of them is kind of like Central and East Asian, and then the other one is like West Asian, but
Okay.
they have like a shared like culture,
Right.
like kind of thing. But like I'm so mad I didn't make one of them South Asian, and it
Okay.
was for loads of different reasons that could be its own podcast episode, I feel. But like the comic is called Booza, and Booza is a food that the main character Sam like makes, and it's like a home food, and it's that's like the start of the comic is she like makes this lovely comfort food that her family would make for her and all this kind of stuff, and
Mm.
it eventually becomes the name of the diner that's like her dream to open up. Her name's Sam. I'm South Asian. Our food is samosa. Why didn't I call it samosa?
Mimosa. Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's the most pun. It's the biggest regret of my life. It would like you gotta be cheesy sometimes, right? Because
yeah.
who's
Just
gonna
put it
make
on the
that
nose.
cheesy pun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on the nose. Okay. All right. That's in samosa. Maybe that could be a whole other series. Yeah. Still time. So. All right. Well,
It'll
that.
be the gag strip afterwards. The
Yeah.
little full coma like
Yeah. Yeah. You're. Yeah.
the
Get the.
ultimate universe.
All right, well, we'll look out for that then. The more food-based stories from Shazleen. But yeah, that's the end of our conversation. Thank you for joining. And because you did mention you've got the book coming out, so do you want to just remind us
Yes,
when's it out?
absolutely.
When can we see
So
it? Any appearances that you're doing?
so I actually closed some of the things, but basically, yeah, where is Buzil gone? Oh no.
We've
I
lost the
put it
book.
oh it's like it's so big and yet still so easy to lose. So this is a new edition of Booza. It's coming out in the UK on the 25th of June. I'm doing a launch party in London at Gosh Comics for it. Please come by. Nigel, please come by. Anyone on my Amada team, come by.
Cool.
Viewers, please come by. I'll be doing a few other signing events around the country, and then also going to a lot of different like comic festivals, including I think the next or like the biggest kind of ones off the top of my head is I'll be at South London Comic and Zine Fair, and I'll also be at Ink Pride, like Ink Queer Comics Fair and Pride Calf. Ink is in London and Pride Calf is in Bristol. I'll also be at Thought Bubble at the end of the year and stuff like that. Hoping I'll be at some other Comic Cons and stuff. But I'll be posting my full schedule this week, hopefully. But you can see me at these events. You can get the book signed by me there, buy them at my table. But most importantly, you can buy them from any bookshop starting from the 25th of June. For anyone in the UK, the books will either already be out if you're in the USA, possibly in Canada, and then will be out for sure by the 25th of June. So if it's not out yet, you can pre-order it anywhere online, literally any online or you can literally go buy it now as well. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing with that. And like I say, giving some inspiration to this year, I really do need to get on that publishing thing and have a good think about it. So, yeah. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone watching or later audio, if this goes up on our podcast feed. Also, a quick shout out to Pro Gamers Group UK for their support with providing us with equipment that we use for live streams, for events, for workshops, from lighting that's currently lighting me up now, microphones, the chairs that I'm sitting on as well. We've got Gamiac like peripherals, keyboard, mice that we use for like content creation. We use them at Comic-Con as well. So that all helps us create better experiences. It's helped me get my head around content creation, how to make things hopefully look and sound better than they did at the start of this particular journey. And as we continue pushing for diversity and inclusion in gaming and other creative spaces, also introducing young people to the world of content creation, some interesting ideas in some of the workshops we've got. Actually, to be fair, it's mostly anime. It's mostly anime. Yeah, kids are or something. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, thank you to Pro Gamers Group UK. Make sure you join our Discord. You can join the New Look Discord. Tazzie's been working on that. We're going to be pushing that or doing more things within that over the year. So join us there. Follow us on Twitch, on YouTube as well, so you can catch the next live stream that we do. And also we have the Story X Story podcast, where Tazzy and I have different discussions, creator interviews, video game discussions, deep dives into stories across pop culture. We're coming up to our mid-season break, so we've got the last few episodes for June, going on the break for July, and then back in August through to December as well. So check that out as well. But as for this conversation, that is it. Thank you for joining us. This has been another episode of Casual Conversations with Comic Creators. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.